Like, that wasn't my intention in the first place. I'm not a content creator, I'm a storyteller. What is my, because I wasn't ready. I hated public speaking. I was very shy. I did not like it. I didn't understand what to do.
There's always this ripple that every action I take impacts someone else.
Yeah.
So which means, in reality, my real definition is by other people. No matter how you tell your story, it's someone else's lens that determines whether or not that story is true.
I used to tell my mom, I'll buy you this house, I'll buy you that this, don't worry, this is, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I kept promising her this and that. Like, that never happened. You know, and just in the point where my life took off, we passed those.
Doesn't that create fear for the future, where it seems like the next creative or big thing that would also shape what, like, your life again for the next trajectory? Does it have to come from pain?
I think the moment you can grab attention, that's it.
That sounds deep. Malik Afegbua is a Nigerian-born filmmaker, designer, and visual futurist whose creative work blends African identity, storytelling, and emerging technologies. He is best known globally for the Elder series, a groundbreaking AI-generated visual narrative that reimagines African elders in high fashion, challenging ageism, reclaiming dignity, and using AI to celebrate culture. Through his work at Slick City Media, Malik creates visually rich, socially conscious films and campaigns. He has collaborated with international brands and studios, including Marvel Studios. In this conversation, Malik and I dive deep into his thought process as to how he imagines technology, AI, while staying rooted in African cultures and the stories that he tells. I know that the world got like fully introduced to you when you put out the Elder series. But obviously, you've been doing stuff for a long time. You've been in the system for a while. Beyond what the world now knows you to be, if you were to say, this is who I am, who is Malik?
Thank you for having me. Great to be here. I feel privileged. Malik is a storyteller. So I call myself a storyteller across different mediums of expression. So that could be film, art, literally what I feel like. You know, I feel like stories could be told in multiple levels. I could just sit down with you and tell you something, as long as I could pass a message or evoke emotions, that is something. Or sell a product. You know, everything has a story embedded in it. So, and that's who I am. Yeah, storyteller.
So, okay, as a storyteller, do you have like a favorite story, or like you prefer creating stories? Where do you lie?
The favorite story is still the greatest story of all. Of how do we become? You know, the Bible, everything. You know. The universe, when you think about the universe, the world, when you think about how the sun and the moon and the earth have, you know, particular, as in very, very distinct numbers,
functions and
distance, and how the eyesight needs a particular amount of light. Everything is very, very intentional, you know. When you think about everything, it means we have to tell intentional stories as well. So to me, that's a greater story.
All right. You know, I like the fact that you're going as deep as possible. Earlier, we were talking about the whole rabbit hole thing where we keep going deep and deep. Does that play a role in how you come up with your ideas, your creative process? Do you enjoy going that deep to come up with something, or like how does it work for you?
Yes, I have to go that deep, because for a very long time I was trying to figure out why I was on this earth. Why am I even here? You know, what's my service? What's my purpose? Those kind of things. And when I found that out, I, you know, did realize, okay, every single person is here for a reason. It's either to serve or to, you know, kind of impact one way or the other. So I go deeper when I'm trying to create something new. I have to go, you know, why am I even doing it in the first place? Who is it for? Who is it going to reach? When it reaches you, how would that affect you and your life or your community and all of that? So all those questions I ask myself first before I embark on every little thing. So I go as deep as possible. Yeah.
And that has helped you create what you've created today. Has it led you to a path where you didn't want to go to? Like you got so far and you're like, nah, this is not going anywhere. This is not for me.
Yes, many times. Many times. I wouldn't go into a lot of them. But yes, many times, because when you're too curious and when you're trying to find out many reasons of why, you get disappointed on when you find out the why.
Yeah.
Do you understand? The world is a very weird place.
Yeah.
With a lot of weird people and weird things are happening everywhere in the world, weird histories. You know, but when you think about why human beings do what they do, and you would almost be discouraged on, you know, what you're doing, but also that could be an encouragement as well to do the right things intentionally. You know, so yes, many times, but I've found a way to focus on the right spaces, not
the wrong ones.
Not the wrong ones.
So how much of the pain that you see, or those endings that don't look like what you expected? How much of that kind of drives what you end up saying, okay, since I've seen this and I don't like what this is, how much of that drives your intent for change? Because one of the things we know is that you are a change maker in the storytelling space. Like, how much of that has driven your intent for change?
It has driven it 100% because I feel like a lot of unfair things happen to great people in the world. You find out why people die early. Great people, you know, and you just can't put your mind around it. You find out why bad things happen to good people. You know, you just, you can't think of a reason why, you know, so that means whatever you do has to be in one way improving something or someone, no matter the situation, no matter where you find yourself, because that way you're trying to dissolve the bad, at least the best way you can. You can't eradicate it, it's not possible, but you can find a way to add to the good. You know, if that makes sense.
I do like that. I do like that. I have a weird question. So one of the things someone has asked me, I should not say people, you know, someone has asked me, do I consider myself a good person? And like, I would often go, yes, of course. Like, who wants to say I'm a bad person? I won't say yes, I'm a good person. And then you think about some of the bad things that you've done. And you're like, if actions make us who we are, right? I have done a couple of bad things. I've done a couple of good things. Am I then defined by my actions, by my intentions, by my... So looking at the good you want to do, knowing that sometimes even the good you do is bad to someone else. Like you were talking about storytelling, like it's bad to someone else. Someone else is like, that thing you're doing is impacting them. How do you then how do you measure the greater good? Where it's now, okay, it's not a question of whether I'm a good or bad person. It's now like, it is good because more people benefit from this action. How do you measure the greater good in your case?
To be honest, I'm a realist, so let me be real.
Yeah.
I don't feel like there's anything as a good person. I'll tell you why. If you had a life and death situation and you had to lie or you had to do something bad to come out of it, what would you do? You save your life, right? Because you want to live.
Maybe.
You would say maybe now, but when you think about your family,
yes,
you would definitely do whatever it takes to keep you. Do you understand?
Yes,
so we could be put in a situation where we don't have control over certain things. Do you understand? So that way, but there are bad people that intentionally do bad things. You know, for their gain or for their own pleasure or for everything. But we could, you know, find a way to do good things, the best way we can. You know, I could find myself in a situation where I have to tell a lie, for instance, and I hate lying, for instance. But what if I tell the truth and that
causes more harm?
Do you understand? So that's why I said there's really nothing like a good person, but you could do your best to be a good person. That's the truth. If someone comes to me and is trying to prove to me that, oh, I'm the greatest, I will just be looking at you and be smiling in my mind, like, okay, thank you. That's, you know, because it's not you that will tell me, it's someone else that would tell you, because it's the outward effect you have on people that would actually, you know, reflect who you are really, not what you think about yourself.
Now that brings me to something a bit deeper, right? So typically, especially when it comes to how we tell our stories, right? I hear people say, tell your own story, be your own voice, let people hear from your perspective, right? And as great as that sounds, sometimes I have like a conflict, right? And my conflict is, I'm supposed to tell my story. I'm supposed to act like, you know, it's my view and my perspective and it should be respected, right? And act like maybe people's opinion of me don't count. But that makes no sense on some degree, because as social creatures, all right, everything I do impacts someone one way or the other. There's always this ripple that every action I take impacts someone else. So which means in reality, my real definition is by other people and not how I define myself. Now for you, who is supposed to tell stories, who is supposed to encourage people to be themselves, right, to see themselves as their truer self, how do you manage that conflict when no matter how you tell your story, it's someone else's lens that determines whether or not that story is true? I'll
tell you a funny thing, and this was a conflict for me a few years ago. About 7, 8 years ago, I used to go around different, you know, low-income areas and, you know, do videos, slow motion videos to make things that look sad or a situation look beautiful. You know, people that live in the dorm, but the way they smile on the camera, the way they play around in slow motion, you would enjoy the video. They're happy in that space. I was telling a story that whatever situation you're in, you can be happy, but on the greater good for Nigeria was affecting it. when you think about the PR of the country, when you think about the outward,
how people
perceive us from that thing, you know. So I thought about it was a confirm. Okay, I'm telling a story in this reality, but it's not helping them, you know, in the bigger picture. But how about I do other things that would change mindsets, that they don't have to be in that situation, if that makes sense, one way or the other, because where we find ourselves, it's all in our mindsets. You know, we can be victims of our environments or situations of where we were born and all of that. But the moment we wake up to, I can do this, you know, I can find a way, one way or the other, to do this, our situation changes, our life changes. But how do you even know when you don't even know yourself? How do you even know when you don't even know if it's possible or not? You know, so I focused on, let me look at the bigger picture and see if I can impact the bigger picture mindset. So when you're seeing a story shapes the world.
True.
You know, everything we do has to do with one story or the other.
True.
We learn from what we see, what we hear, what we listen to, what we watch on television. That's how we almost live our lives.
True.
You know? But how about, what if we're intentional about all these things that we're perceiving? That would, even if it doesn't change my mindset, maybe my kids or people around me or something. You know, so that was a conflict for me. Okay, let me stop doing this and let me try to do this, even if this is the reality of things, you know? But let me focus on a way to, it might not be today or in the next 10 years, but the moment someone's mindsets change or sees a story somewhere and says, I can do that, that might affect, you know, the bigger picture in one way or the other.
So now I want to stay on the storytelling bit a bit, all right? Because it seems like the more we talk about it, the deeper it gets. Because, okay, so now you were telling a story, right? And using the scenario you painted, people in like bad environments, it was real. It was what was happening, and you were filming that, and you saw that it was affecting how people perceived us, because it seemed like that was all there was to us, right? So you decided to show something else, right? And in the bid, two things here: you are trying to change perspective, but changing perspective, is it truly changing narrative? Like those people's story in the dump, has it changed?
That's the thing, it hasn't changed. And it may not even change in the next 5 or 10 years, but now, because narrative, if you look at narrative on a wider, you know, frame, it's with whose lens in the first place and who allows this lens in the first place.
I see.
Most of our stories are told by foreign lenses. You know, when you have the Western media coming to Nigeria to try and tell a particular story, they don't go to the affluent places. They try to talk about Nigeria as a low-income place that they earn lower than $1, but in this space, people are, you know, still making this amount of money or whatever. There's always a kind of they try to strike, you know, this, you know, and I'm like, no, we need to tell our own stories one way or the other. So, for instance, if I was telling a story that, okay, maybe someone came from this space and has changed his life, so this is where he is today. That's a different trajectory. That is life changing. You know, it's different. But when I think about the narrative itself, think about Africa as a continent. Think about Nigeria as a country itself. How do people perceive us? How do they even see us? First of all, how are we? Why do we have to work harder to prove a point? All those things matter in the entire narrative. How can that change? You know, so until those things change, all these other things will not change. Why are people still living in dumps? For instance, why are the government not doing anything about it? You know, so it's the entire thing, because they're focused on many other things that I don't know if they should be or not. They have their reasons for doing it, you know. But till we change the entire narrative, and narrative and story, like, they're two different things, but they work hand in hand.
They help each other.
Yeah. So we need to find a way to have that balance between the both. You know, we are trying to tell the reality of what's happening, but we're also doing it in a space where it doesn't, you know, affect us negatively. If you know, that's how I see it.
I very much agree. So you've done a lot of amazing work with Marvel. You've done the other series, and like we've seen your work in places where it's truly resonating with a large audience of like, this is big, this is great, right? And somehow we have to come back to distribution, right? Because my thought often is, whatever I am doing, I feel like there's someone else in a very small village, probably 10 times small scale than I am. All right. But like for some reason, my work is more visible than their work. The same way there are people who I might be better than, whose work are far more visible than my work.
Exactly.
All right. What do you think is the one thing they have, or the one thing you have, or the one thing you've done? Right. So it's either you have it or you've done it. That has put your work out there that has allowed your stories to be seen in the light that they've been seen?
I think the moment you can grab attention, that's it. You know, I have done a bunch of, like, when I tell people that the Elder series is like, it's not even close to 10% of what I have in stock. You know, but they're looking at me like, okay, wait, so I have, and even before and after, I'm a writer, my wife is a writer as well. We write
nice.
stories that is not a Nollywood or Nigerian story, but a story from a Nigerian to the world kind of thing. Do you know, those kind of things that anybody, anywhere in the world can resonate with? The way you saw Parasite by, you know, the Koreans, I don't know if it was Korean or Chinese, Ban Ki-moon.
The Asian Parasites movie.
Yeah, that movie.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so maybe you cut out the name I just said. I can't remember his name. But, you know, he was telling a story that everybody loved all over the world, regardless of where it was from. But it was just a story. So those kind of things is what we tell, even if, you know, we're in this space. But the other series resonated on many different levels because, one, we had not seen elders in that light before. We had not even thought about it in that space before. Like, why haven't we done that before is the question. Or why do we think about beauty or ageism in a particular light?
way, yeah.
You know, all those kind of questions. And when you start asking those questions, you start looking at how we've been conditioned in the past, how we've storytelling has conditioned us to do things in a certain way.
Yeah.
That when you're 60 and above, you go to a care home or you retire, you do this and you're just waiting for your kids to take care of you or many other things. Or it's not meant to be, you know, that way. Life should be lived, life should be enjoyed. Africans are elegant, we're kings, we're royalty. We're not suppressed. But the media and the perception is that this is who we are.
True. And
that affects even the individuals as well. They think of themselves that way. You know, many people came up, I had many messages from all over the world telling me that they had changed their mindset based on this project. You know, like I used to think I couldn't dress this way before, but today I don't care, I dress how I want. You know, I've had, like if I start going into the messages, it's a lot. And it's still coming in today.
Yeah.
So the moment you grab attention, and that was the attention that happened, then they started to listen to me on other levels, other things that you were doing. Before that, nobody cared. I'd do 100 things. I had 20 likes on my Instagram. I was okay with it because, you know.
But you were not looking at those metrics. I
was just creating, you know. But even when that happened, people were looking at me to start creating more things to top that. Like that wasn't my intention in the first place, you know. And I'm not a content creator. I'm a storyteller. There are directors that do one film in 4 years.
True.
Do you understand? Yes. That one film, you keep watching it every year.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing. Because they are storytellers, not content creators. And they're passing a message, not trying to get your likeness or hatred. They're just telling a story. And that's where I find myself in. So I try to tell people, don't classify me as a content. I'm not trying to top any previous project or whatever. I'm just telling stories. You know, so but I'm glad it resonated. And that opened many doors for me. You know, it's many doors in many spaces in Hollywood, everywhere. That's okay. When I do want to start releasing my stories now, I can have the audience. I get someone to listen to me. I could pitch it to them, maybe to the world or whatever. So that was the plus. So that, you know, kind of told me that if you want your work to be seen or to be heard, find a way to grab attention, hold our attention. And the only way you can do that is do something intentional. If it's not intentional in the way that people resonate with it one way or the other, it affects their life, then it's just you trying to make numbers. And if you're trying to make numbers or drive traffic, you're doing things that are crowd pleasers.
Oh, I see.
You know, so that's the difference between intentional stories or just the metrics of
pleasing stories. The crowd that you've done something.
Exactly.
I see. Now, okay, so here's my thoughts though. Like my thoughts is this. Somehow, and this is an opinionated thought. Yeah. My thoughts is, so you've been telling stories for a long time, right? And you have a lot of creative skills, and you've been using a lot of technical tools, right? And then, just at the peak where AI becomes like, what is AI? What's happening with AI? Then you tell a story with AI, and then you tell it, and it's seen on socials, and that kind of blew, right? For me, I'm at this place where I'm going, I can tell the best stories all I want. But if I do not use necessary tools, things that are currently being like people care about those things at the time I'm using it, it might make no sense, right? And as I'm thinking that same thought, I fall back to people like George Lucas, right? Who told Star Wars before, like, doors could open on their own, right? And he was talking about teleportation and even at the time we were not even thinking about it, and it was okay. So here he was telling a future story that did not really make sense, and everyone loves Star Wars, right?
True.
But yet, there's always that conflict. Like, when do I start doing the things that are just future focused and not necessarily what people are using? And how somehow for you, it was just exactly what people cared about at the time, that you utilized, and you know, that was what brought you out. So I feel like that's my own conflict, like, and at the same time, that's my own thoughts, that you were coming at the right time with it, so that people cared about, right? And it brings me to my next question: distribution, right? How did you get it distributed so well? Or was it like an intentional distribution? Because it got distributed so well, where I started seeing these places that, you know, you won't think about saying work like that. I was seeing it on news platforms, global news platforms, right? And each of them had their opinion as to what they were saying, but they wanted to pick up that story, right? Now, that's distribution. How do you do distribution and still stay in your creative lane? Because I feel like the moment a creative start going to distribution, to marketing, to they start to go, okay, how do I please? You just said something, you don't want to top up that, but the business requires that you top up that. How did you do distribution?
I didn't do distribution. That's the truth.
Okay.
And I didn't even plan to do anything like that. So, and that's the power of social media. The moment you put your work on social media, that's the end. Anybody can see it. Anybody can resonate with it. It took one, like, it was crazy. When I posted that, those images, the first set of images, I was just thinking my friends just like it and comment and boom. So, and I used to jog every morning then. I was on my iPad. That's what I did. Put my iPad down. My iPad was 100%. It was like 5 a.m. in the morning. That's when I created it. Put it down, went out. When I came back, my iPad was dead. I was wondering, is my battery bad? What's going on? What is happening? Charged it was fine. Then when I tried it, I saw notifications. Like, and this was linked. I didn't post it on Instagram. This was LinkedIn. Notifications had weakened my battery. I was confused, like, what is going on? And you know what? Then I posted on Instagram like 7 a.m. That's it. Before I knew, by 10 a.m. it was on Shade Room. It was on. I had calls from CNN, from BBC. I had 3,000 followers on Instagram.
Instant.
You know, no, that was my initial followers that I had, 3,000.
Okay.
By the end of the day, it was like 20,000. My requests were, I was just trying to, who is this, who is that? My battery would die, I'll charge it, I just responding to everybody. That's just how it went. And it kept going for months and months. It didn't go down. I started having invites from different countries. I was going, like, traveling everywhere. I didn't even understand because I wasn't ready. I hated public speaking. I was very shy. I did not like it. I didn't understand what to do. You know, I had to learn on the job. What am I saying? What am I going to do? How am I going to respond to this? Film crew coming to my house. My wife was, oh God, okay, why are people coming again? It was all new for me. You know, people would send me messages and tell me, oh, I didn't even know you were going to respond. I'm like, who are you? Is it not me? What are you talking about? You know, so it was all new. But then I just realized how far the project had gone. And while all these things were happening, I was grieving. That was what most people didn't understand. I didn't even have time to grieve. You know, 'cause the project was mostly because of the loss of my mother. You know, and it wasn't me trying to drive traffic or anything. It was just me, you know, trying to understand grief, connection, everything, but telling the positive story of that. You know, so while this was happening, I was just going everywhere. I just said to myself, this is it. You know, let me just find a way to learn on the job and just be confident and say what it is, and, you know, maybe use that to get more doors opened and everything. So that's what happened with the Elder series. And from there, other opportunities started to come. I just started to create other things, but people wanted me to keep doing things with the Elders. Like, what is this? What are you planning? I said, you know what, maybe we should have a real fashion show, something. While I was thinking it, some people reached out from Amsterdam, let's do a fashion show. Did a fashion show in Amsterdam. And from there, we started to do real fashion shows as well with real people and all of that. This year, we have a very big one, 2 big ones actually. One at a hotel. October 4, where we have people like Ruth Carter from Marvel Studios coming. Speaking to other Hollywood people as well. I had a message from the first Black Billion from James Bond saying she wants to be a part of the runway this year.
And this is cool.
Like, I even had a message yesterday sending me, a manager sent me a number, say, can we have a conversation soon? So yeah, sure, definitely, we'd love to have you. Like, this year we plan to have people like the Dangotes, your choirs, walk on the runway that we've never seen them in their life before. We have normal people, regular models, 60 to 50 models, age 60 and above.
60 and above?
And above only.
Nice.
And we had the second one in Barcelona, November 18 this year as well.
Okay.
We're opening for the Mozilla Festival this year. So that's
congratulations there.
Thank you. But just imagine me just doing that from my couch in my small office in my house without thinking of it to get into that space. It wasn't anything that I ever thought about, and everything is a memory of my mother, really, like literally everything, because that was even why I even did it in the first place.
Yeah. So one bad morning kind of led to all of this.
So exactly.
How do you feel about that?
Bittersweet.
It's a bittersweet.
Yeah,
story.
because my mom, we're 6, and every single one of us are very close to her. And she was the strongest person I ever known. Never got sick, nothing. She's the one I would call for advice. What herb, what multivitamin, she had everything, kind of thing. Up until she took the COVID jab.
Oh.
And that's complications that expanded the arteries in her heart and all of that, caused a heart attack. So that was me trying to process. And she lived in the States at that point. To get an appointment for American visas, as of 3 years ago, you need to wait an entire year for that.
Yeah.
My siblings were in the States, so I couldn't even attend a burial.
Whoa.
Do you know how crazy that was? So I couldn't even say goodbye properly. And I remember when she came, because she did COVID jab in Nigeria. She came to Nigeria briefly, and I was supposed to see her when she was leaving, but I couldn't see her because I had meetings. Do you understand? But my wife and son went to meet with her before she went to the airport. So just imagine me beating myself for what meeting? The job, I didn't even do the job at the end of the day. So I was so angry. I couldn't say proper goodbye, nothing, just on the phone. So it was just me. So throughout the entire time the world was celebrating me, I'd go in my quiet place, I'd just put my head down and just, you guys keep doing what you're doing. So I wasn't as excited about it. It was just, it's fine. And I'm still that way. I'm thankful and grateful.
Yeah.
But I tell my mom, I'll buy you this house, I'll buy you that, don't worry, this is, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I have 4 sisters, I'm the 5th, and I have a younger brother. So I'm the first boy. So I kept promising her this and that. That never happened, and just in the point where my life took off, you passed away. So it was very, I don't know. And it's still that way. I'm still grieving. I have days where I'm just sad the entire day. I'm just either crying. I hear a song, I'm gone, So bittersweet. Yeah.
Part of me is feeling like maybe I should give you a minute.
That's fine.
Because I'm looking into your eyes and I'm like, maybe he needs a minute.
That's fine.
The other part of me is asking, it's funny, right? Because so many artists actually create wonders from grave.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And it feels like a pattern. Mm-hmm. And my question now is, doesn't that create fear for the future where it seems like the next creative or big thing that would also shake your life again for the next trajectory? Does it have to come from pain? Because it seems like pain did a huge ripple. Yeah,
I think not pain in essence, but emotions and owning your emotions.
I see.
And I didn't really, I used to be one person that I never really liked to show emotions. I used to, fight it out, struggle it out. I lived in London from a young age till graduation by myself. Most of my family were in the States, but I was by myself in London. So I lived a life that I was very self-sufficient, very hard, very, doing things for myself, many disappointments. So I've done that, I'm still battling with that today because I'm very, very self-sufficient. That's not good in a marriage, for instance,
I agree.
You spend a lot of time by yourself, but we're finding a balance, with that. But when it comes to emotion, this was the first time I had to find a way to deal with it. I've not really had that much loss in the family. I'm not a lot of loss. So this was like the closest person to me, and this was, that happened. So I had to find a way to deal with that emotion. And that taught me a lot of things afterwards. When it comes to happiness, anger, fear, everything, I kind of put that into, internally, first of all, what does that mean to me? What would that mean to someone else? What does that mean to the world? And how can I express myself with this? Do I want to express myself in a sad way, in a happy way, or in an inspirational way? I always think about inspiration because the world is sad already.
True.
Do you understand?
True.
I don't need to make you happy, but I could inspire you. One way
I like that.
You get me? So that's what I do to myself. I don't need to be happy all the time, but if I'm inspired, I could find a way to navigate a particular situation. So I was walking through it, I was dipping myself into the work and just, but then I didn't find time to really process it. So I had to learn that as well. So emotions do a lot in storytelling, especially if it's real, if it's raw, and if you're just being true to your work.
Yeah.
So that's how I see it.
Because, it's funny, there's an artist that I truly like, and it seems like every bad relationship she has had, she has made a song out of it. And I remember there was a point where, her song kind of drifted, and part of me was going, she needs to break up with her. So that,
Is it Adele?
she could write a good song, and then she broke up and wrote like an amazing song.
Yeah.
And I started feeling guilty. Like, I sort of wished her pain to write a great song,
I can imagine.
And there's the selfishness from those of us that are receivers, where you want something from storytellers, you want something from creators, and somehow they have to go through the highs and lows of emotion, and like you then comes to say it's you're not trying to make anyone happy or sad, you just want to inspire. That allows you to stay at a place where you don't necessarily need to be at that heightened emotion, and I think that's something I've not heard before. And
that's because I create for myself first.
Nice.
Before anybody else. First, so I don't care if someone likes or hates it, because there are a lot of people like me that would have either similar emotions or experiences. So you find you could resonate with me. So if I like it, that's all that matters. That's what I do.
You're okay with you, and maybe people like you, and that's it.
That's it.
And if it does more than that, good for it.
Good for
it. That's a different way of creating. So it brings me to what's the future of work for you, right? Like right now, if I Google your name today, it comes out with AI artist, storyteller, filmmaker. But like AI comes out 10 years from now, when everyone is doing AI, what would be Malik? What would Malik be doing?
So I kind of see myself as a nation builder, in a way that if I could change your perception, your mindset on how to approach a problem, you could find a solution for certain things, and I feel like my work doesn't just inspire creators or young people, but even everybody. I have, kind of messages from people from leaders of industries, trying to find a way to use a tool to solve a problem. So if I see myself at the pedestal of solving problems, mostly then I could solve problems in communities or teach you how to do that by just applying your mind to do it. It's not just about technology, but how to use the technology. That really matters. So that's why I said nation builder. Change your mindsets, look at a problem differently as a puzzle. Let me solve this puzzle rather than sitting down and say, how can I do this? But it's all in the mind. So that's why I say like a nation builder.
I see.
Yeah.
All right. So now I want to play the devil's advocate, all right, and then ask. So there's the arts and there's the science of the arts. So what you do, there's culture, because you still want to ensure that you're staying true to the people whose story you're telling, right? But then there is art as commerce, and there's commerce even in science, without which no one funds it, right? So earlier we talked about you being like on global news networks. You've partnered with a couple of people. The brand deals that have had to come out of this, how much of that, because they understand that this is a market, they want to be able to use what you do to reach out to probably larger markets or to even stay connected with their markets. A, how does that feel for you as a creator? B, how much conflict has existed between what the brands want to tell and what you as a storyteller want to tell?
So first of all, I don't accept every job that comes my way. I'm blessed enough to be able to decide to just, filter through everything. If I see that it's affecting my community, or I don't take it. If it's just for money, I don't take it, because money would always come. I don't work for money. Money is a byproduct. If you're doing your thing, you're doing it well, you're being true to it, money is a byproduct. It's to come no matter what. If I was working for money, I'll do everything. You will see my work everywhere. You would, but I kind of choose. Some people don't like it. Some people think it's pride. It's not pride. It's just being intentional. I've done a few things for a few brands, but even those I had to choose, I had to say no to some. Like for instance, there are some organizations that wanted to use AI for global health images and stuff. I thought about it. You can't use AI for certain things. You have to look at the real thing. You have to you have to find a way to interact with the
real people.
real people for you to be able to do stuff. So those kind of things, I would think deeper, regardless of, I didn't even ask you how much you're paying me, but I would say, tell you my opinions and my views. Or if you don't agree with me, I would charge you times 100 so that you can't afford it and they'll run away kind of thing, you know? So I find a way to navigate these people by still, you know, keeping relationships with them.
I see.
But when it comes to my work is not exceptionally commercial. It's more of artistic. So if I'm doing a commercial thing, it would be something generic. Like Cadbury, for instance, the Cadbury Bonvita people, it's all AI. I did that 3 years ago, and I didn't tell anybody until 2 years after. Because if I told them 3 years ago, people will be angry, saying, why am I doing this? Why? Photographers will be saying, oh, I'm taking a job.
You're taking the jobs,
But 2 years after, they now understand the reason why, you know, stuff like that. So I could do stuff like that to start a process of, I can approach a problem differently. I can approach design differently.
You
know, stuff like that, you know. But when it comes to representing our cultures or in a certain way, I have to think deeper about it, first of all. So I'm not a very commercial person. And going back to your question about distribution as well, when I think about it, for a very long time before that happened, I was looking for a manager. I was looking for a management company that will manage my talent and do all of those things. Or something that will just project me. I had several meetings. I was even under a management for a little bit, but they were mostly into art than like, you know, traditional artists than my tech space. Then that happened. So, and everything that has happened since then has been personal conversations.
Nice.
You know, the Marvel thing that happened, Ruth Carter DM'd me personally. You know, that's
I was coming to that.
You know, so it was everything, like every people that I've spoken to in Hollywood. I had a conversation with Rolls-Royce sometime last year as well when I was speaking to the entire staff. It was personal communication as well. People, sometimes they ask me and they say, who manages you? Or some people ask me, how do you, who are your managers? Who's your PR company? I don't have any.
For real?
None, zero. Like I have no communication with anybody. So they just reach out to me, and sometimes I'll be thinking, should I lie that this is Malik's manager? I'm like, nah, let me just keep it real. You know, I just, no problem. And they're like, oh wow, you responded.
I feel attacked. No. I have responded as per different names.
I just couldn't keep up with it. And I'm one person that I get distracted. So I don't want to, the less distractions I have, the better for me. Today, I don't mind having a management company to do all of that, because it's hard to combine creativity and commerce together. I would take some jobs that are paying me nothing because I like the job. But commercially, that's not good.
Yes, that impacts the business side of what you do.
Do you understand? So sometimes I just rather just not respond, but sometimes I still do it. I still take those jobs. I still say, you know what, whatever your budget is, just let me know. I just want to just do this regardless. Sometimes it's just collaborative. I just do it. But thinking about the business, thinking about growth, thinking about, profit, it's not viable, it's not great. That's why I said, okay, I might still need to get a PR company, I might still need to get a management company. The profile is already there, the portfolio is already there, so maybe, but I've never sought it out, I've never tried it as well. I still get DMs from individuals, from like representatives directly to me, asking me, because they will first of all find my representative. They don't find it,
then they
come to me. So it's been that way, and that's the power of social media as well. Social media, you can use social media to either dance on camera or share your work intentionally. So people think about dancing on camera, no offense to anybody that is doing that. Will give you the right kind of crowd, but there's a crowd for that.
Yes.
There is always a crowd. So if you're trying to, there was a time I just stopped posting on Instagram. That was why I posted the thing on LinkedIn first. I was more active on LinkedIn than I was on Instagram because I was trying to get to certain kinds of people. Industry leaders, CEOs, those kind of people that I was targeting, because I was shooting TV commercials at that point and doing other advertising stuff at that point. But Instagram gives you the numbers, gives you, other eyeballs that people that are not on LinkedIn do.
Helps with circulation.
I'm still not a Twitter person. I don't know how to work on Twitter. I've tried it.
Yummy bots.
It doesn't work for me. I have like maybe 2,000 or 3,000 followers on Twitter because I'm not active. But it's different on
for some people.
On other platforms, and stuff like that.
I have a drift question. All right. So I wanted to ask, I was going to talk about like the fact that you use global tools to tell local stories. Right. I was going to talk about the invention of it. I was also curious about Marvel. I wanted to get deep into that, but there was something you said that I feel like you just picked, and maybe someone else would pick the same thing, right? So you said you select the kind of jobs you do, the deals that come your way, and it seems like it comes from a place of conviction, right? What if I say that there is a chance that it comes from a place of privilege, right? Like, because
you could say that.
Like, don't you think it's because you have certain privileges that allows you to? So in this conversation, right, you have siblings, and through the stories, right, we've heard that you have siblings in the US, and it's typical Nigerian thoughts is, yeah, you have siblings that are doing fine if they're in the US. The fact that you paid plane tickets to be in the US, you're fine, right? You spent a lot of time in London, you're fine. And there's another artist who is trying to use the same tools, but don't have anybody anywhere, right? Do you see that same person saying, no, I'm principled? Like,
I would feel like, so for instance, there is a perception of things.
Okay.
Yes, my people might be doing well, but doesn't mean I'll go and meet them every time if I'm stuck or if I need something.
Because in the back of your mind, feel like even if I fall, you know, my ground will not be like rock bottom. It will be like bottom but not rock.
I get you. We have people that don't have as much opportunities that other people have, and that's how life is.
Yeah.
I do understand that. Yes, there is some privilege there. There is some privilege that I was able to school abroad. But even if schooling abroad doesn't mean I was living la vida loca.
Sure.
And all of that. I wasn't doing miniature jobs or anything, but I wasn't a millionaire or anything.
I like that we said we were not doing miniature jobs.
Yes, you know, I started my first company actually first in the UK. And that's because of the fact that I was curious. It was a clothing line. I bought a t-shirt from some guy called Tony the jeweler then. He was doing t-shirts for Kelly Rowland and a bunch of people, selling his t-shirt for as high as £50 then. I was a student, and this was 2008, 2009. I'm like, why would you sell a t-shirt for £50? Normally I go to Primark or Marks and Spencer's or something, let's get £2.50, £5, £10 and you're good, you know? Then I said, I need to know why. Then I researched about him. I saw what he was doing. He was putting rhinestones on his t-shirts. That was it. Now, how can it be? Went on YouTube, learned how to do it, got the machines. In my room, in my dorm then, I was making t-shirts with rhinestones and I was selling it. That was my very first company, and it went really well. I was selling to like bars, I was selling to schools. When I mean schools, I mean making 60, 100
in bulk.
Bulk for them, for bars, for them, for my friends, individual people that want, stuff made. So I was making money from that, but that was just from a place of curiosity as well. So that privilege, I would say, was my curiosity, because I didn't meet anybody to come and invest anything. I saved my money, and I did that. I had, student jobs as well, save money, do that. And in the UK, you pay rent monthly, not yearly.
Not yearly, yeah.
So no matter what you're doing, you're paying bills. So I wasn't living la vida loca. You were still working. I was still working, doing everything that I had to do to get where I wanted. So my drive has always been find a challenge and go through that challenge, and that's what actually inspires most of the jobs I take today. If it's a challenge, I take it. I don't care about the money, but if it's challenging, I love a challenge. I love to solve problems. I think it's a problem as well. I'd go on Amazon and I'll buy puzzles trying to solve it. I like all those kind of things. I just like to use my brain, because I'm like, even if I don't solve it today, maybe in a few months, I'll go back to it and I'll solve it, and that I have fulfillment there. So that relates to real life as well. In AI space, when we were creating things even for Born Vita, then there was nothing like realistic images then. I had to find a way to create new pipelines to create realistic images that was looking like that. Then a month later, when I had new models, I'm like, oh God, because I was happy that I found a solution, but it was now useless because we had now AI tools that could do it.
That could do the same thing with
the prompt, you know. So, but to me, that was still shaping my mindset on the way I attack, problems and find solutions for them.
So coming down to like your use of AI, your use of technology, right? And I think this is going to be my second to last question, I guess. Coming to your use of technology, for someone who is very Africa driven, right, and using tools that are globally produced, right, and it pays more for the global markets because you have to subscribe to all of this sense, right? Do you see that as another form of digital colonization? Right, and if you do, what do you think needs to happen what needs to be the change for us as Africans?
That's a very good question, and it is something that I've been talking about for the past year as well. I find myself trying to refine data sets to get the results I'm looking for every time. AI could capture cultures but not subcultures.
Yes,
you have to find a way to make it work. But that's different from when, because it was trained in the global north, not the global south and all of that.
Yeah.
The data sets are very, very biased. Very, very the misrepresentation is heavy when you start exploring it. And I just sat down about 6, 7 months ago, and I'm like, why do I keep refining data sets? Why do I keep refining? Why can't we just create our own? Then that put me on a rabbit hole to try to start a journey that I've been on for the past 6, 7 months, which is to create a large language model for Africa. It's called LLM V1.
Nice.
So to collect, tag, archive, refine, and train LLMs from scratch. So I don't even want to use any technology. I mean, from scratch. And that is a lot.
Yes,
because
it's heavy data building.
Exactly.
Power consuming.
As in, bro, it is expensive as well. And now think about it now. But now the good thing is we could now have Ijebu, Wafi, like the sub people that are not just Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo, sub cultures that you could be represented in a digital space. And what that will lead to is specific problem solving for specific areas that are unique to Africans and Nigerians. Now, we are still dependent on foreign data sets or foreign solutions and all of that. But most of these things don't work for us. We're just trying to make it work for us. Yeah. But what if we can target problems specific to people, who they are, where they're from, how they were raised, everything, and you understand it by using AI to properly analyze or so it's very, very new. And I kept asking myself, why are we not doing this as a federal government, as a continent? Because this is what we need. Who controls the data controls the world.
Very true.
That's why China and America are still fighting on all this data and everything. Yeah. Now, where do we stand as Africans in that space? We're not even in the conversation.
We're not in the conversation yet.
And that's a problem. I did the maths. I said, okay, what would it take to get 50 billion tokens, 50 billion data points, 3 trillion tokens? I need 300 computers on the cloud space. For instance, that's running for 6 months straight. I said, okay, I have great computers, but it's not, but what I can start doing for now is let's just collect data, archive data, refine and tag. Then when we have the consuming power or the right funding or anything, then we could get there, but let's just start. I've spoken to like great people, Biasika and the likes, which are, helping as well, trying to find the right spaces, collaborating in the right spaces as well for it, but we're also still trying to get the right funding for
bringing the right people.
Bringing the right people, because the moment we get in this space that we actually own our technology, Africa will change. Nigeria will change. We'll start to create new job opportunities, start to create new solutions, new technology. Everything will be different. Like there'll be a whole new Africa, if you ask me, because what if they shut the door to everything?
Turn off the internet.
What do we like? When any new tool comes out, I have to wait months to get it.
Yeah,
I'm privileged enough that some of them send me the tools to test as a beta tester sometimes, but some of them have to use VPN to access it.
Yeah,
LTX Studio is still not accessible in Nigeria. You have to use VPN to do it. Why are we at the background? What's the problem? So all these things are major. I've done keynotes all around the world. And when I go do my keynotes, I'm not just the only Nigerian, I'm the only African in that space. Wow. So I'm like, what are we doing? What are we? And I find out that most of the people that are working in the space of AI or whatever, we're still dependent on.
Very dependent.
On
the tools.
On the tools.
Yeah.
And that dependency is a problem. Because the moment AGI starts and we've not corrected the bias, that's colonization 2.0.
That's the digital colonization we're talking about.
Exactly.
I like that you are leading this, all right? And so my last question typically is, what's the one question that you would wish people ask so you can address, all right? But before you answer that, right, just because of what you said, my general thought is there no form of arrogance to assume that like one is the person that should do this? Like you said something about sometimes you show up in the room and you're like the only African, not just the only Nigerian. Don't you feel that sense of, wait, why am I the only one? There are tons of people in tech like making a lot of noise. Why? It's like no one even cares about the real change, right? Does it not end up putting you in a place of arrogance that I'm the one who has to do this? Why doesn't it feel like a savior complex?
No, it feels like a necessity. So I set up a group recently called NFAT, and that group is the New Frontiers of Artistic Technologies, to train for free. Just to understand how to approach this technology. In the group, I think about 200 or so. I even stopped put anything in the group because I felt like maybe education should not be very free. Maybe the moment you invest yourself in it, you take it more seriously.
Serious, yeah.
Because my mindset was maybe you don't understand the problem and the future of this thing 10 years from now if we don't do anything today.
Yeah.
So I started to just sensitize people and do all of that.
Yeah.
Last year, end of last year, I did my account. I checked where my funds were coming from. 90% of my money was not coming from not from the continent.
Whoa.
Yeah, 90% of my income came from outside the continent. Then I said to myself, I told my wife, what are we doing here? Maybe we should leave, right? You know, since we're just here and we're earning in dollars and earning in pounds and, you know, different foreign currencies. Then I thought about it as well. I know these things. I have a solution to this. I know what to do. I just don't have the right capital to do it or the right people to do it with.
Yeah.
So if I leave, it's like the jackpot syndrome again. I'm running away.
You're making it worse.
You guess,
or doing nothing.
Doing nothing. That's I'm just going to chase money. So I said, you know what? Let's stay. Let's try. Because I looked at the whole thing. My passports are full. I don't need to worry about anything when I'm traveling anywhere. I can apply for any global visa I want. You know, very, very qualified. Then I thought about that as well. Maybe that is a trap as well. Because the moment I start focusing on other things, I'm building a different society, different, you know.
Yeah. Within someone else's space.
Someone else's space. Yeah. But I'm here, I'm Nigerian at the end of the day. My kids are Nigerian at the end of the day. So what am I doing? So I said, let us forget about all of that and stay here. That's why I rang up Obiasika. You know, great man, you know, he answered me, he said, you're not going anywhere. So I'll seize your passport. That's what he said to me. You know, I told him my fears. I told him everything. Like I was very, very open to him. You know, and this is what we did. So he said, no, they'll do everything they can to try and make it work. We're still having conversations and, and another man called Mr. Tolu as well, still having those conversations as well. Just seeing what's the best way to approach this problem, that we actually have real solutions for it. You know, so I just found it as a necessity. And sometimes when I'm doing it, I'm spending a lot of money because I spend dollars, you know, not naira actually.
Paying for many of the things you have to, yes.
To use, I'm like, what am I even doing? Why am I even doing it? I ask myself that question, you know. So, but I had to slow down because I have to pay school fees. You know, I have to pay a lot, so I had to just slow down a little bit and just do little things that I can. But I've set the space, I've set the pace. So when we have the right funders,
you're going to push into it.
We could push it, yeah.
That feels really good. Yeah. All right, so like I said earlier, the last question. I do have a million more, but I have to end here and ask. What's the one thing you want to talk about and people don't ask you enough of? Like, this is something that really burns you. It could be the biggest fears, biggest challenge, biggest setback, problems, failures. But what's the thing you want to really talk about but you don't get asked?
No, the one question I would love to be asked a lot is, what is your account number? I'm joking. I'm not joking, but
I like that question too.
Yeah. So it's important. Look, I used to see, sometimes I sit down and I'm like, I have so much ideas. Sometimes I used to try to figure out how I went through primary school because I lived in my head a lot. I used to daydream a lot, like a lot. I'm always here. And while I'm daydreaming, like in the past when I was in school, obviously it is fantasies and whatever. But these days I'm daydreaming about solutions. I'm always here thinking about how to solve a problem. Sometimes I just gotta look for a problem and look for how to solve it. You know, because I feel like, what am I doing with my time apart from the regular things of, I don't want to be here just to work and pay bills or do all those things. And that's, Nigeria will put you in a space where you're hustling. Survival mode. And that is, it never ends if you don't put yourself out of it.
Yeah.
You know, but what if you're a problem solver? But problem solving also costs money. You know, so how can I attract the right people, the right funders? I have films that I could work that could put Africa on a different space. But I don't even speak about them a lot because it's just be like, let's start from somewhere. I have ideas of spaces that we could get people involved in creating things, you know, hackathons, on and off, creating products, all of that. I'm like, these are always ideas. Where do we find the real? So I was asking myself, the right resource,
the right things.
You know, and I go on social media sometimes and I'm seeing money thrown in different spaces. I'm like, should I go and dance on the internet? I'm joking. You know, but it always burns me. So where do you go to access? I have a lot of I have the right network of people and all of that. Very, you know, great. I get grants sometimes. there's an organization called Africa No Filter as well.
Okay.
They are very good, like they're one of the leading organizations that are trying to put Africa on the map on the positive space. So they give grants, you know, to creators and all of that. Like they're number one when it comes to that. I think they'll be changing the name soon, but let's still call them Africa No Filter.
Africa No Filter.
Africa No Filter, like that.
Nice.
They have a mission to change the perception of, you know, Africa
Africans
to the world, but also empower creators. So like my first meta collaboration was through Africa No Filter, that I got, you know, a lot of money to create a virtual reality experience with the Kofamata dye pits. Kofamata dye pits today is dying out because of, you know, either insurgency or wear and tear or just, you know, many things. But when it does die out, we have it in a virtual space.
In a virtual space,
we could educate people,
preserve it
and stuff. So we have many cultures that are not preserved, for instance. Why we're not using VR AR to preserve those things. We have many languages that are getting lost.
Yeah.
You know, we have INCBD, for instance. A lot of people don't even know what INCBD
is.
And many other things like that. Why are we not been teaching them in schools? Why are we not sensitizing many? And all these things can be used with technology as well to scale. And I created something recently, toys, African toys, and I use ChatGPT to do it.
Nice.
Like different cultures.
Oh yeah. I think I saw the pictures,
stuff like that.
Frame. Yeah.
And I had many messages saying, we want to stock your products. In my mind, there's no product yet. But I said, you know, I'm going to buy a 3D printer and just do this and just create it, because that's where something starts from. Then think about my upbringing. I grew up on the Supermans and the Super Teds and all these things, you know, but we didn't have any African thing to hold on to teach us about our culture. So when you think about that in the future as well.
Yeah.
I was on the mainland yesterday and I saw this woman in the sun, a traffic warden, heavily guarded. It was sunny, she had gloves on. I'm like, why is nobody thinking about like changing the look of these people to match the weather? It should be very hot like this. You know, thinking about solutions on different spaces that affects our mindsets, you know, because if she was physically, you know, like, okay, like the sun wasn't affecting her, she would do her job even better. She wouldn't think about many other things, and if she was paid. So many things affect even from the ground level. Think about it from a design point of view. Design, solution together, I think is the future.
Oh, I do like that. I think that's a good way to close this. So thank you very much for having this conversation with me. I have enjoyed it, and definitely I'll ask you more questions behind the scene, and maybe I'll just put the notes for anyone who's watching to read through. Yes. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me. It's been a great conversation.
Likewise. All right.